in that department.
What are you going to talk about? What are you guys going to ask me?
All righty, welcome back to the Del Mar Fairgrounds, that is. That's the scene of the boardroom of the International Surfboard Show. My name's Todd Klein, alongside me Jeff Baldwin, and just before we jump into our next guest, you can see there that's a live camera view of the shaping bay, and 6 shapers vowing for the crown and the icons of foam, honoring MR, Mark Richards, our 4-time world champion, one of the best shapers in the world, just a legend of our sport. And there's so many other things taking place here at the boardroom. There's basically the latest and greatest in surfboard shapes, accessories, and the list goes on and on. It's truly a family affair as we look on the screen there. Kids, moms, dads, live bands. It's a fantastic event. So if you are local here in Southern California, come on down here to Del Mar Fairgrounds. $9 parking, $10 entry, and just a fantastic way to spend your Saturday or Sunday.
Oh yeah, you've got the Longboard Collectors Club down the way. You've got the Best of Show competition that's going on. The skate ramp for the kids. Really a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Something great that Scott Bass has put on, and it's a great platform for the vendors here to showcase the latest and greatest in their products. Speaking of which, Tyler Calloway, our next guest from FCS. How are you doing today, Tyler?
Good, Todd. How are you?
Great. And the show, how's it going so far
Good.
for you?
Great. It's been a busy show. There's a lot of people here that love surfboards, you know, and that's why we're here. We love surfing. We love surfboards. We love the performance aspect of it.
Well, it's the nucleus of surfing, you know. There's the athlete, there's the board, and everything else is, comes after the fact. So it's great. Tell us a little bit about FCS. Obviously, Baldy and I know a lot, but there's people all over the world right now tuning in for the first time, maybe seeing FCS for the first time. Tell us what FCS is.
Well, FCS stands for Fin Control Systems, and that's basically the art of attaching your fin to your surfboard and being able to remove it, which 15 years ago, when I started the branch of the business here in the States, was fairly revolutionary. Now it's become, there's a number of different ways to do it.
And I want to take my fins off. Why?
Well, changing your fins is a little bit like changing tires on a race car. So you can match, your board is glassed. You can't change the hull, you can't change how the hull of your board is going to perform. But by changing the fins, you can change how your board will perform for the conditions that you're going to be surfing. That's at the heart of it. And
you can save quite a bit of money when you're traveling, right, Baldy?
That's right. And how many, the growth in fin templates and fin technology with all the different types of craft, it must just be great for FCS as a brand. There's opportunity for all style.
Well, there's so many different board designs out there, and being able to change the fins allows you to experiment with different foils, templates, flex patterns that all affect how the board performs. So being able to do that for different board designs really allows you to tune that design into how you want to surf.
So you could take, for the guy that's not fortunate enough to have a quiver of boards, he might be going down to Latin America on a surf trip. The average day is 3 feet, great for his board. It jumps to 6 feet, doesn't have a step-up board. He can go with bigger fins.
Bigger fins will help quite a bit. It won't help you paddle into the wave any faster, but it will help you hold in when you're going twice as fast and the wave's twice as big.
Well, knowing time is limited here. Let's dive into FCS a little bit deeper. What's the latest and greatest coming out of FCS?
Well, there's a couple of new developments here. This is what we call our X2 plug, and it's the same shape as the original FCS plugs. They're tied through to the deck. You can see these dark circles here. So there's an I-beam of resin and fiberglass that holds these plugs in, so there's no structure in the foam of the surfboard itself. It's basically air. So by tying it to the deck, you're tying to the structural part of the board, and that's how those plugs stay in. One of the things that we've done is we've added our logo to these plugs because there was a number of unscrupulous people out there in the world and in different countries that were making a counterfeit plug that looked like ours. The materials were inferior, the design was inferior, the molding was inferior, and sometimes the plugs would fail. People would not know that it wasn't an original FCS plug. So now we've added our logo to these X2 plugs, and also to, this is our newer system, the Fusion plug. This is an older one. It doesn't have the logo. The new Fusions all have the logo as well. So if you're buying a new board, look for the FCS logo on your fin system to make sure you've got genuine FCS plugs. Now, here in the US, there's not a lot of issues. There's mostly reputable board builders, but especially with some boards coming from overseas and you know, places, you want to be careful. You want to look, make sure you're getting the genuine article.
Yep.
Quality control.
And you know,
So
that's a bit of insight on the revolution of the cups and how they've come along. How about templates? Anything new there, or makeup as far as the foam core goes?
Well, these are ultra light. You can see the honeycomb pattern in here. Fins are basically made out in a sort of a sandwich mold, and resin's injected through this foam core where you see the pattern here, and the resin flows through that core and it holds the sheets of glass on either side. It holds the fin together. So that's called RTM, or resin transfer molding, and that's how these super light fins are made. Everybody goes to great lengths to get their boards very light, and you don't want to put a heavy set of fins on an ultralight board. So we're making the fins as light as we can make them.
And we just watched the latest, you know, 2 ASP events. We saw the Hurley Pro at Lowers. We also saw the Quickie Pro in France. And it really gives the viewers at home insight on what the guys are riding. And we noticed, you know, really in that semifinal at the Quickie Pro, both Joel Parkinson and Kelly Slater riding forefins. Are you seeing an influx in sales as far as forefins go? A lot of the boards being made up with, you know, the option to run 5 fins if they want to. What are you selling the most of right now, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
We are selling a lot of quads, a lot of forefin boards. A lot of the boards that are being made now are being made as convertibles, meaning that there's an option to run the board with front fins and a thruster setup, as has been popular for the last 30 years, or as a forefin, which is kind of what we're looking at here from the side. You've noticed, you know, Kelly's won the last 2 events on a quad. Before that, Mick Fanning won Chopu on a quad. So
does that spike sales for the forefin setup?
It does, but they were strong already. You know, especially here in the U.S. where the waves aren't as powerful. There's a lot of boards out there. People have discovered that a forefin will go faster. It'll be looser off the top. It'll perform better in waves that aren't as steep than a thruster. A thruster is really good for sort of square turns. You have to turn a thruster about a 90 to 100 degree arc to get it to squirt. A quad will squirt. You can sort of do a 30, 40 degree arc off the bottom, basically swoop off the bottom, get up high. And because you have 2 fins on the inside rail, you got more hold. You're able to get more speed. There's not a center fin, which is a little bit like an e-brake on a car, dragging. And that can be a good thing when you want to pivot your board and do a snap under the lip. A thruster works really well for that. If you have a not so steep wave that you want to get speed out of, a quad's good for that. If you have a hollow barreling wave where you're basically hanging by your rail and your fins and you want to drive through the barrel and go as fast as you can, a quad's good for that. That's what we were seeing in Hasagor last week. That's what we were seeing in Chopu a month ago. You know, whereas 2 weeks ago at the Hurley Pro at Trestles, you saw Kelly go to a quad in the finals, semifinals and finals, and it wasn't hollow, there wasn't barrels, but he was able to skate out on the face and do big arcing turns and score the points that he needed to win that event.
Yeah, there's a lot going with the quads. And what I see in talking to a lot of the board manufacturers after these 2 events is they're just going to get rushes of 5-plug boards. That's what everyone's going to want, and that's got to be a boon for the business just because it's a product of the times.
Yeah, and you need multiple fin setups in order to utilize that equipment.
It's good for the business, and it's really good for the surfer because it just gives you options. You know, most of my boards the last few years, I've set them up that way. It just means you can travel with less surfboards. You take a couple sets of fins, you go from a quad to a thruster depending on the conditions, and it gives you a lot of versatility and adaptability to whatever the ocean's offering that day.
Yeah, so just to add a little bit to what you said, and with my own personal experience as well as doing interviews with some of the top pros, I find, and to reiterate what you said, is that with the four-fin or the twin-fin setup, you don't have the drag with a thruster. So in really small, like East Coast surf, you can feel the difference just paddling, and obviously that generates to as soon as you get up on a 1 to 2 foot wave. Then, out of my element, but in speaking with some of the top pros, Chopu, Pipeline, that thruster, when you get on the foam ball in the barrel, well, it'll also drive you on open face, but it can get grabbed by that whitewater monster. The four-fin just floats over it, and that's how those guys, you see them make it out of some of those really deep barrels.
You see those four-fins just engage the face, lift on the foam ball right before it, and shoot out, where the thruster drops out.
Yeah, having those two fins on your inside rail gives you a lot more hold in the barrel. You can actually pump and pull it up a little bit higher, and you get more squirt and glide out of a pump or a turn without that center fin. The center fin does act more like a rudder. It doesn't create lift. It stabilizes and just gives you directional.
And speaking of which, though, sometimes when we've seen Kelly in particular, you know, because I've ridden four fins, and sometimes they're fantastic, but they're a little bit unpredictable. You do a cutback on one wave in one section, you go to replicate that, and it'll slide on you in the next identical section. You notice Kelly goes to what I refer to as the little guitar pick, that little red fin, and it's just enough to keep it from sliding on you. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, that's called a nubster, and that's just a little stabilizer that goes in the middle. It's a small little fin, you know, 1.5 inches high, you know, 2.5, 3 inches long, and it just gives you a little bit more stability, and it really works well on a quad with a wide tail that feels a little bit loose and slidey. It just gives you that little bit more stability to push a little harder and drive a little more off your tail.
So you do a lot of R&D and you have this amazing team, but how much feedback are they giving you? Are you working with them day in and day out, or is it Richie Lovett? I mean, you've got Mick Fanning, Julian Wilson, the Jeremy Flores, Kelly Slater for years.
Mm-hmm. It goes in stretches. You know, you work with a guy, you focus on a few different things, one fin or one design, 4 fins, 3 fins, whatever it is. You kind of focus on one thing, and you concentrate on that, and you get feedback, and you try different prototypes and try to improve and get it to where you want it to be, to where they want it to be especially. And then you kind of go away, let that set in, let them test, and then they come back a lot of times with, you know, hey, I'm thinking about this, or this isn't working as well as I'd like. What can we do to make it looser, or to make it go, you know, straight up off the lip a little easier, or pivot around the top, whatever it is.
So some good insight from the riders, definitely.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, thanks a lot, Tyler. What's your website for the viewers out there that want to learn more about FCS?
SurfFCS.com.
SurfFCS.com. Tyler Calloway, sorry. Best of luck to you, my friend. Look forward to seeing you in the water. And stay with us here live from Del Mar, California. Coming up soon, Matt Biolas, one of the best shapers in the world, right after this.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Good job. You guys look like you're landing planes there with those.